You guys ready over there? I need binoculars. Okay, I think so.
Oh, great. Great.
Okay. Welcome to the special meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commission. It's April 1st, 2025. And our first order of the meeting is to call the meeting to order. Our second item is the roll call. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck,
Here.
Commissioner Fettner,
Here.
Commissioner Nanis,
Here.
Commissioner Henry,
Here.
Commissioner Mantis,
Present.
Vice Chair Kirsch,
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. First item of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was March 18th, 2025. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by many. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays, that motion passes.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I'd like to recognize City Council Liaison Annette Lidower, Corporation Counsel Martinez, and Corporation Counsel Hannah Saeed. Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Our first item of business is a public hearing, PUD-2025-00041, for a special use permit in the nature of preliminary and final plan development, rezoning to RM1 and R7, plat of re-subdivision, design review and modifications from city code for a 240 residential unit townhome development at 1660 and 1700 Old Deerfield Road. So welcome to the special meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commission. My name is Karen Moore. A quorum of the Plan and Design Commission being present, the members of the Plan and Design Commission will now introduce themselves for the record from my right.
Kristen and Chuck.
Josh Nanis.
Danny Mantis.
Steve Kirch.
Ken Henry. David Fettner.
The Plan and Design Commission is charged with hearing applications for rezonings, plan developments, and subdivisions under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations of the City of Highland Park. In all matters, we recommend to the City Council based upon the testimony presented to us in the hearing. We are required to decide cases within 45 days after receipt of the transcript. All testimony is under oath. Both applicants and others who wish to speak on a particular case should present specific evidence as to why a proposal meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. For clarity of our record, only one person at a time will speak, and all questions will be directed through the chair. We ask that you make every effort not to be repetitive in your testimony. Finally, we will make every effort to adhere to the schedule prepared. For tonight's hearing, if additional time is needed on a matter, it will be continued until the next available agenda. With that, I open the floor for the staff of the Plan and Design Commission to read into the record proof of publication and ownership.
Proof of publication and ownership are available for viewing at the Offices of Community Development, 1150 Half Day Road in Highland Park. And Madam Chair, if I may just say two other things, I just want to recognize Alex Mendoza, student rep. I see him here, as well as Autumn Fowles, student rep. Thank you. In terms of tonight's meeting, please, if you have electronic devices, please put them on mute or do not disturb so as not to disturb the proceedings here this evening. Also, if you have conversation, please take that out into the hall and keep your voices low so that we can conduct this public hearing properly. Thank you for your cooperation and thank you for being here this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Who's going to present to us tonight?
Madam Chair, I can present. Senior Planner Carl Burhop, are you ready?
All right. Yes, anytime you're
Okay.
ready.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the City of Highland Park. The Community Development Department Planning Division at 1150 Half Day Road. I want to thank you for all coming out this evening. So this is a special meeting, and so this is a presentation on the various requests for the 1700 Old Deerfield Road site, which is formerly called the Solo Cup site. It's for a rezoning, plat, plan development, design review. Okay, so this is a brief summary. I have some slides I'll go through just to briefly summarize the application and provide summary zoning, subdivision, and design review code comments. So the Habitat Company LLC is the applicant. And they are proposing in summary the following: 240 residential townhome units distributed in 50 blocks, so to speak, of attached townhomes. And each townhome has an attached first floor garage. There's also a club and pool amenity structures proposed, as well as a maintenance building. They also propose changes to Old Deerfield Road to the west side between the subject property and the police station, and up right to the north there, that include widening for dedicated turn lanes. The applicant proposes to preserve landscaping and open space along the west and south periphery of the development, so broadly up and down Ridge Road, and then broadly along the entirety of the southern property line. Also, additional parking on site and landscaping is proposed by the applicant. So what are the requests before the Plan and Design Commission? So the applicant requests the following considerations. So one, to rezone this property. So this property is currently in the light industry zoning district. The applicant proposes to rezone, or requests or proposes to rezone part to RM1, which is a multiple family zoning district, and part to the R7, which is a single and two family zoning district. The applicant requests a plat of re-subdivision to re-subdivide the property, a special use permit, the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, design review, and then modifications from city code. And if you don't mind here, I'm just going to shake the mouse so it doesn't the computer doesn't go on sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the neighborhood context. So to the north, our properties also zoned I. Those have commercial uses. To the west, across from Old Deerfield Road, is the police department, zone PA for public activity. To the south and southwest, so across from Ridge Road and then to the south, it's a large single-family neighborhood, zoned R6, with single-family homes, including single-family homes that abut directly to the south. Along the east is railroad track and then commercial property. So the rezoning quest is a 28.61 acre site. Current zoning is light industry. So this is an exhibit. Of course, this was posted online. And so where the development is to occur, well, where the construction is to occur for the townhome units, the parking, the private roadways, et cetera, that's largely proposed to be RM1. And then the area acting as the open space buffer are proposed to be rezoned to R7. Staff did discuss with the applicant on the rezoning to fine tune the zoning lines to get the RM1 zoning so that it's what's needed to meet their proposed density requirements. So that may be further revised. The plan development request, PUD. So again, this is the applicant's site plan. It's for 240 townhome units. It includes that aforementioned clubhouse and pool kind of in the middle of the development, parking and private roadways, and then open space for wetland and tree preservation along the west and the south. This is a rendering of one of the types of townhome attached units the applicant is proposing. This is another rendering. So modifications. So the applicant requests modifications to code that the plan and design should consider and make a recommendation on. So the first one is distance between buildings. There's a separation requirement of at least 15 feet for new buildings, and the applicant at certain locations proposes 12 feet. And so there's a relief request. There's also a request for required rear yard relief. I actually have an exhibit on, or a slide on this coming up, so I'll talk about that further. The same with the modification to the required maximum heights. I have a slide for that as well. And the last one is to allow no loading spaces for the requirement is 2. To be clear, though, that's a request for loading spaces. It's not a request for off-street parking. And I have a further slide on off-street parking. So for height, this is an exhibit the applicant provided. And I always want to remind the commission, as well as explain to, and for those who already know, remind, in the City of Highland Park zoning code, grade and height have definitions. There's a certain way they're calculated per how they're defined in section 150.202 of the code. For how that's defined, height has to be measured from grade. Now, they're proposing that this is going to be zoned RM1. So if that comes to pass, that it is zoned RM1, the way height is measured, it's measured from grade to the mean elevation of the peak of the roof to the eaves. And so actually I have it there, that red line that says height is defined, that cuts through kind of the middle of the roof. But that's not measured, according to the definition, that's not measured to the grade as you just stand in front of a building and see it. The way it's actually measured, the way it's defined, and I'm paraphrasing obviously because I don't have the code in front of me, but essentially it's the average grade of the subject property. This property is over 28 acres in size. The applicant did submit a grade exhibit that was included in the packet where they took multiple elevation points and essentially took what is an average grade of the property. And so what is identified here on the left is where the relief request would be the lowest, and what is identified on the right is where the relief request would be the highest. And so at most, it's a 6-foot height request by the applicant, to where on the left it's 3.5 feet. And so there's some mix of units that will have the lower versus the higher end. And one staff comment would be is that the applicant should further nail down exactly what that distribution is in terms of height modifications. What else do I want to say about this? The last thing I'll say is there's how the code defines it, but context does matter. And so there is, well, what if you stood in front of the building? Just how high is it when you actually stand in front of it? And so what this exhibit attempts to show is also what that is. And so you can see that at grade, at local grade, you know, on slab on grade, the actual height is 38 feet, which would still need 3 feet of relief, but that just provides context as to what it would look like if you were actually there, if these homes are built. So for the rear yard encroachments, I did not snip all of the site plan, but I did indicate here how many units encroach. So along the north property line, on those red boxes, there are a handful of proposed units that encroach within the required rear yard. And then along the east, and I just took the top portion, but then that continues down. But the actual numbers on my slide, it's 17. So the RM1 zoning district requires a 25-foot rear yard setback, and that's measured from the north and the east. I will point out that in this case, where setback relief is requested, is where it abuts commercial properties and railroads. This is not a relief request towards the single-family districts. And so 20 is proposed. That's a 5-foot of relief being requested, and there are 17 total units that have that encroachment of the 240 that are proposed. Okay, moving on to additional modifications. So there's a request for signage to allow 3 ground signs and 5 sign faces. The applicant did provide some sign information in the packet. It was included in one of the exhibits where they indicated where the signs were going to go and where the sign faces were. I believe staff asked for additional dimensions on that. For the Article 22 landscaping requirements, the applicant did ask for relief from the required tree planting islands within parking areas that exceed more than 10 in a row, and then to reduce the foundation requirement from a 5-foot in-depth buffer to 4 feet around the foundations. There was a landscaping plan in the packet. That was one of the larger files actually in there. And then also there is a modification from impacts on environmentally sensitive areas. I have one slide on that. And then I'll just point out the applicant will need to submit photometric and exterior lighting specification information as and if this moves forward. So this is the wetland impact. This was in the packet. It was in one of the applications, one of the applicant's materials. There's a wetland impact identified right near the entrance, and then there is a buffer impact, which admittedly is hard to see. The buffer impact was one speck of identification on the plan. So I'll just put that to the commission to point that out. There are, of course, other wetlands on this property that the applicant is avoiding. So in terms of public benefit, Actually, let me start off by saying my last comment first, that staff are still reviewing the adequacy of the benefits proposed. So when I run through this, I'm running through this as this is what the applicant proposes. Staff is not actually weighing in on this at this point in time. We are still determining the adequacy of this proposal. So the applicant proposes improvements to Old Deerfield Road. This was an exhibit that was provided. This is in the process of being reviewed by both the city's engineering division and the city's third-party consultant, Civil Tech, and those comments will be forthcoming at an additional commission meeting on this matter. Essentially, the idea is to widen the right-of-way towards the police station, and there's a left-bound, going north, a left-bound turn lane, and then on the north, heading south, is a left-bound turn lane, and additional improvements there. And then the second, well, I should say the last bullet point, the applicant indicates in their narrative, they will open up vehicle access from Richfield Avenue to the access road along the Union Pacific Railroad. So that gets back to the, that would be, the best way I can describe it is a stem. It's the long access road at the top right of the exhibit that follows the railroad track. It goes from the development out to Old Deerfield Road, where Old Deerfield Road intersects the railroad. And then there is an existing parking lot, the northwest part of this property, and the applicant indicated in their narrative, they will expand that by 10 parking spaces, and those additional 10 parking spaces they would provide Zion Park Police Department on an exclusive basis. I'll just point out, there's an easement in this area, and the city is aware of ongoing discussion concerning legal interpretation of that easement, of those easement documents, and the city is confident the parties will be able to work that out. And then finally, the applicant proposes open space area along Ridge Road and south property line varying in depth, and actually that'll go to my next slide here, which shows the open space better. So this is an exhibit provided by the applicant, and so the red marks are where I indicated certain setbacks there. The requirement for residential development is that 20% of the subject property must be left open for open space, which in this case is about 5.7 acres. The applicant proposes 12.6 acres in totality, which is just over double the requirement. Of that 12.6, I want to be clear, of that 12.6, a subcomponent of that is that 11.5 acre area, which is that large tree wetland preserve area that is along the west and the south of the development. Design review. The applicant will need to provide hard copy materials and color exhibits for the commission's review. The townhomes will have a mix of front and rear loaded first floor garages, 3 stories in height, and utilize whites, grays, and blacks. Those were on the renderings. 714 total parking spaces are proposed. 480 spaces providing garages, that's 2 per garage. 110 spaces are provided on garage aprons, then 124 on surface parking throughout the development. Just a staff comment, the applicant must provide ADA spaces as required by law. Design review, so exterior lighting, as already stated, the applicant will need to provide that information. The applicant does propose a 6-foot board fence proposed along the north property line. Applicant may go up to 8 feet with fencing along the north and the east, as those abut commercial properties and the railroad. The applicant did provide a landscaping plan. They are in excess, they are surplus as to what the code requires for shade and ornamental trees, evergreen trees, and shrubs. Species information, however, should be provided. That's both a staff comment in order to confirm compliance to the zoning code, which requires a certain minimum mix of species, as well as also a comment by the city forester, and then just to pin down what install heights will be for which species. The applicant did provide some install height information, being between 6 to 8 feet for the trees and 24 inches for shrubs. The plat of re-subdivision. So the applicant wants to provide easements for utilities and ingress and egress. Those were per utility comments from the agencies. The applicant does propose a wetland conservation easement running along Ridge Road in the southern property line. Actually, yeah, I don't have an exhibit of that. It's in the pack, but it actually matches. I can't sit here since I'm paraphrasing. I can't say it matches exactly the open space exhibit, but it's very, very close to that exhibit as to what along the west and the south, not the other green portions that are isolated, but along the west and the south. Housing Commission review. So the applicant will be providing 36 affordable on-site units. Requests 1.2 units for payment in lieu. The Housing Commission is set to review this and to provide its recommendation. That is a recommendation that will come back to this commission at a future meeting. And then other comments, again, City Engineering and Civil Tech will provide updated comments for the traffic study for the next meeting. Same thing with city departments and utility agencies. No development may occur until the city has received and approved related permits and drainage and grading. Final engineering documents will be required for final plan development. And I'll just point out some public comments were submitted after the packet was posted. I just want to make it clear for the record that I distributed all the comments that I believe that came in before 4 o'clock today were distributed. And all the comments that were submitted, even if they were submitted after 4 o'clock, I will still distribute those at a later point, and they will be posted at the next packet. And I just want to make that clear for the record. So staff recommend the commission open the public hearing, hear presentation from staff and the applicant, consider the application, take public testimony, and when appropriate, direct staff to draft findings of fact for whatever recommendation the commission may make to be presented at a future public hearing or continue the public hearing for additional information and consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I can take questions.
Does the commission have any questions of staff? Go ahead.
Question. I saw that there was a creek present on the southern part of the site, and there's also the wetland on the western portion of this site. Is that correct?
I do not immediately recall. I mean, they identified their only impacts on this exhibit.
Yeah, my question was just related to whether there could be a possibility of flooding or a floodplain potentially present here, or if the units were meant to have basements.
I will move to my computer so I can write comments down. I mean, that's a comment I'd have to refer to our engineering division. To be clear, though, all of this is would be reviewed. Final engineering and what have you would have to be reviewed by the building division. It also has to be reviewed by and properly permitted by the Lake County SMC, the stormwater organization with the county. And then I was going to say one more thing on that. Oh, just to be clear, there's also no floodplain on this property.
Okay. Are there basements present for the units proposed?
I don't believe so, but I would defer to the applicant on that, but I don't believe so.
Yeah, I think they're just garages on the first floor.
great.
Okay, so we were just discussing whether there were basements in these, and we will ask the applicant when they're up, but amongst ourselves, we do not believe there are basements. We believe they are garages on the first floor, so at grade. All right, any more questions of staff?
Jeff.
Oh, yes.
No,
No,
you-
go ahead,
I
Commissioner
thought we
Henry.
were gonna go down the-
No, Commissioner Henry.
Carl, you indicated during the presentation that the area that is listed as this preserve, that they're proposing that be rezoned to R7. Does that mean that at some point in time, they could develop that as single-family residences
Well,
by right?
So I have several responses to that. So the commission can certainly adopt conditions of approval, and the commission can certainly adopt a condition related to development there. And then also I'll point out that on their plat, on the applicant's plat of re-subdivision, they identified that as a wetland conservation area. And so my recommendation would be that easement be further defined and indicate as to whether or not that limits it to development or not.
Okay, but as R7 without conditions, though, they would be able to develop that further at some point in time as of right.
Conceivably, yes.
But only with an amendment to this plan development.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kirch.
So Carl, I'm sorry, I don't have the packet page numbers because I had to do them all separately. But at some point, you said that the multifamily use here is permitted on this site, but it's not permitted currently. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in order for it to become permitted, we first must adopt the zoning change. Is that correct?
Oh, that's right. I hope I didn't misspeak during my presentation. You're correct in what you said, Vice Chair Kirch.
do we need to do that before we proceed with any of the other items, the other three items that we have to do? Assuming, look, I mean, we all know how important a parcel this is. Do we not need to debate or deliberate the zoning change, which is a major downzoning? I think everybody recognizes that from our highest use, eliminating all of our commercial uses. So I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I would find it hard to move forward without resolving the zoning issue first. I don't know, though, given that this is a PUD and it's kind of all in one, whether we can do that.
Well, so this is a concurrent consideration, and you are correct that technically, when it comes down to final action, the zoning change does have to be considered and approved first for that to happen. Now, remember that you are a recommending body, not a final action body in these considerations. So they will travel to the city council, and at that time, as Corporation Council advises, the considerations and votes will be taken in the appropriate sequence to effectuate essentially what you're saying.
Does anyone have a density comparison on this proposed project to say, I don't know, maybe the Bloom Townhomes or some of the downtown development? It's hard for me to put it into context. It seems rather dense, but I'm not, again, if you have a comparison, I'd be interested.
Staff could bring that back at the next public hearing if you'd like, but I do point out that the density calculation would be for the entirety of the project, not just the portion where the development is occurring. Is that what you were asking for, or are you just asking for
Well, I guess if
one or both?
we re-subdivide, wouldn't it
It's all going to
just be the RM1 density?
No, my understanding is there's a consolidation into one parcel. Is that correct, Carl? This is all just one property ultimately.
Well, how can one
20
property have two zonings?
It happens all the time. Split zoning can happen, particularly for large areas like this. There's no concern there. The rights that you have in each district are relative to the land area effectuated by that district. So if you were to develop in a split zone lot, you'd have to develop in accordance with the zoning where the building is located. So none of the buildings are located in the R7 in this case. The entirety of the R7 is open space and be conditioned as such as part of this process. And so every area of the city needs to be zoned in some fashion. And R7 is a zoning district that is consistent with the zoning across the street in terms of a step-down zoning between a higher density zoning district and a lower density zoning district to the other side of Ridge Road.
And then
I hope that answers your question on that.
Yes, I just want to ask about Professor Goldfarb's comments that we got and whether the staff had any answers to those on the environmental quality of the site.
We would defer to the applicant on those. And they do have actually a representative here tonight that could possibly provide some insights to how they're approaching the site from that standpoint.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, anybody else? Any more questions for staff? Oh, yes, Commissioner Hernandez.
Yeah, I'm struggling to wrap my brain around why you'd want to have this split zoning. Is there like a tax benefit to that? Is there other things I'm just not considering? I just don't see why it'd be split into two different zoning things unless you have something you want to do later on, which we could cap.
Zoning is a matter of long-term consideration of how lands would be developed or not. There may be superseding things such as covenants and other restrictions from approvals that preclude development, as is being proposed here. But all land has to be zoned in some fashion. And so having it split zoned in this way is still more consistent with how you do what we would refer to, as I had alluded to before, step-down zoning, where a more intense district is separated by a buffer of zoning that is less intense. And that's what you're seeing here. This particular project is proposing to even provide that buffer at a greater level of assurance by having that be green space and open space as part of this development proposal. So, like I said, all land has to be zoned in some fashion. We think it makes sense to have a step down for this area as shown, except for the one note that Carl made is the area along the southern border there will be tweaked so that the R7 zoning district will actually go further up toward the development so as to just capture enough RM1 zoning so as to allow the proposed project, but the minimum area of that zoning district that would be required, meaning that RM1. So we've spoken with the applicant about that, and our understanding is that they're amenable to that because they're not seeking to develop in that area. So I do think that the proposal makes some sense in the way it's laid out from a land use perspective. I do think that given the context and the sensitivities of the surrounding neighborhoods, they've gone even further in terms of talking about that being open space and dedicated to that as such. So those are our opinions at this time.
Thank you.
I actually have a question for
Sure.
staff. What's the most similar other development that we have in town? Would it be Chantilly? Do we have another townhouse development that has, between 200 and 250 units in Highland Park?
We will get back to you on that question. We're going to do some research based on what was asked previously, and we'll get back, on the density and then the size so that you could get some context in terms of other developments already built.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any more questions for staff from the commission? Alrighty, the applicant would like to come up and present. And then I'm going to need you to raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name and spell your last name for a minute taker.
Will do. Good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the commission. My name is Katie Jenke Dale. That's Jahnke Dale, Dale. And I'm from the law firm of DLA Piper. We represent the applicant in this matter tonight. First, I'd like to thank staff as well as the commission for taking the time for doing such a robust and comprehensive presentation. And I'm going to try not to repeat anything, but we have our entire team of consultants here tonight. I forgot to grab that. Thank you. Thank you. I think it works. Like I mentioned, we are here, and Carl had said the applicant is the Habitat company, and Zach and Tom from Habitat are here tonight. We also have our traffic consultant with KOA, our civil engineers from Space Co. Our wetlands consultant is not here tonight, but we can bring him in the future, but also Space Co. may be able to answer some of the questions you may have there. BSB Design is both our architecture and land use planning firm. And then on the team, we also have Urban Forest Management, and then not on here but present tonight is ECS, which is our environmental consultant. This slide, I just wanted to pause real quickly before I get into the next one to tell you more about the applicant, to highlight one of their most recent projects, which is the Cassidy Tire site, or former Cassidy Tire site in Chicago, which was coincidentally also immediately adjacent to a rail line like we are here. There are about 270 trains per day versus what we've counted most recently of about 10 trains per day. So just to say that this development team has very recent, very successful experience developing in similar circumstances. So to dive a little bit more into who Habitat is, they have been around since 1971. They work across all residential product types, including deep experience both in market rate multifamily as well as affordable and mixed income communities and condo. They have over $3 billion in assets managed. They've developed over 19,000 units, and they manage more than 16,000 units. They have a very large, robust team and a lot of experience, I think you would agree. In addition to that Cassidy building that I talked about 2 slides ago, and some high-rise development, they also have, and the buildings on the left-hand side, of this slide show it, experience in lower density residential development. This is Kinsey Park, which is also in Chicago, which includes townhomes and mid-rise buildings on the left-hand side, as well as some of the other beautiful and successful projects of the higher density on the right hand. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Staff did a great job kind of summarizing the existing conditions of the site, but we just kind of going back in history, want to talk about the left-hand side is when Solo occupied the site from 1960 to 2008. They operated, as many know, an active plastics manufacturing operation with approximately 600 employees. Since 2008, when they closed, the existing owner acquired the site 4 years later and demolished the Solo Cup facility and performed, at that time, remediation. That is shown on the right-hand side of this site. The current, just to clarify or make it clear, the applicant is a contract purchaser, not the current owner of the site. So again, we have ECS here tonight, but knowing that environmental, given the historic use, is a concern, we just want to touch on, we as the contract purchaser after acquisition will be seeking a NFR, no further remediation letter from the IEPA, which will enable the site for residential use. Habitat has extensive experience working with the IEPA on NFR letters. The Cassidy building that I talked about first, being the most recent, the Kinsey Park property that we just talked about, or that I just talked about as a lower density project, also included extensive remediation of a rail yard in order to enable that residential development. And these are a couple other 43 Green and Ogden Commons, very recent examples of their experience working with IEPA to achieve NFR letters and have very successful residential developments thereafter. So this slide shows the proposed development program, and I won't spend too much time on it because Carl did such a great job summarizing it, and I think it's best to show it graphically on the plans in the next slide. But briefly, we'll have 2 cars in each unit, and then just shy of 3 cars per unit overall parking ratio, which exceeds the parking requirement per code. And then the amenities listed here that I'll point out on the next slide. Carl, you're able to scroll down a little bit so it's a little more centered. Right. So this slide shows the proposed building layouts, the on-street parking for guests and other visitors. The clubhouse and pool is kind of in the middle in yellow, if you can see that. The park and play areas in the middle of the site, and then there's a dog park on the south end, and some of those are shown better on the slides to come. There are 240 units within 50 buildings, as mentioned, and we've made a pretty significant effort to orient those inwards in order to maximize privacy for surrounding neighbors, in addition to providing those generous buffers. There will be 2 access points that staff talked about, one on Deerfield Road, just south of Ridgefield, and the other through that currently private access road, accessed further to the north, that we will be opening up for public use. So I know there was some discussion on the zoning, a couple of things just to kind of respond to comments or questions we heard already. We will be making the updates that staff requested as far as tweaking those lines to accommodate their requests. From our perspective, the split zoning was really just to really demonstrate to the community that we are committed to what we're proposing here. There's no plan, and we fully acknowledge that if we ever, well, we have no plan of doing anything on the R7 zoning, but we know that with a PUD approval, we are locked into the density in the site plan that we would be showing, and we would have no kind of by right development available on that R7 zoning, which is why we were fully comfortable splitting the zoning, underlying zoning of the PUD like that like you're seeing here. This shows the green and open space a little bit better within the site, especially where the clubhouse is, and then the various kind of play spaces and parks within the development highlighted in green. Like Zaf mentioned, we still are working on our landscape plan and getting it to the level of detail that they've requested, and we will be providing that. So this shows, I know you already saw these, the proposed townhomes. The difference between the two is the top left shows the rear-loaded townhome design, and then the front-loaded townhome designs are on the bottom right. Most of the townhomes are going to be rear-loaded, or the top left design, but for some of the townhomes, mostly along the buffers or the periphery of the site where rear loading is not possible, those will be front-loaded, or the bottom right. And just to clarify from our perspective, or confirm, there are no basements. So again, I think a lot of these were covered. From our perspective, we heard and have heard that the police department has, additional parking needs that they asked if we could explore helping them out with. So there is that existing parking lot in the northwest portion of the site that we would be looking to explore to expand to provide them with some additional spaces. We know that that is subject to an easement. As recently as this afternoon, our Habitat's attorney, who is handling the transaction and the title and survey and easement matters for the site, had a conversation with that easement holder's attorney. So we're in active discussions with them, and we hope that we can provide those spaces while respecting those easement rights. We talked about opening up that currently private and inaccessible road on the north end of the site, that spur. I'll come back to the left turn lane on the next slide where we cover it in more detail. It should be noted that while we're still working on our fiscal impact study, which we'll provide at a later date, we know there will be significant real estate tax revenue increases. Currently, the site, as many may recall, is in a forestry preservation program and generates just less than $1,500 a year annually in taxes. So we are very confident there will be an increase with that. Again, putting the site back to active use and bringing 240 new households will bring additional sales tax generated. And then we've, again, spoken quite a bit about the nearly 8-acre buffer as well as additional open space on the site. We also will be creating temporary construction jobs, some permanent jobs, and then the on-site affordable housing. So just to come back to the proposed traffic improvements, we're proposing a new left turn lane right on northbound Old Deerfield Road in Richfield. That could be needed today to allow for traffic to be processed in a more efficient manner. It does require a small sliver of a portion of the property on the west side of the street to be reconfigured to widen it. But it will, we believe, have a significant positive impact, and we have Kayla Way here to go through that exhibit or any traffic-related questions in more detail. And finally, I appreciate staff going through these in great detail as well. If there are any questions, by and large, the separation between buildings, the setbacks, the foundation planting beds are really our effort to really maximize the buffer, the open space buffers that we're providing on the south and west side while maintaining a thoughtful design. The request from staff to provide additional information about kind of where the height increases are needed and to what extent is underway. As you can imagine, with a 28+ acre site, getting out there and figuring out the grade and where each building's going to go and whether they need 3 feet or 6 feet is going to take some time and study, but that's definitely something that we're willing to do. The side yard parking is related to that extension of that parking lot in this northwest corner that we're hoping to do in order to accommodate the police need. I don't think the loading rationale was covered previously, but that's really driven by the fact that the loading requirement is really based on unit count. And as you can imagine, loading for townhomes, or it's probably more akin to a single family home, which wouldn't typically have a loading dock, versus a multifamily, which I think the loading requirement is more geared towards, given it's driven by unit count. And then there are a couple not on here that were covered by staff I just wanted to address, which is the draft of the photometric plan is very close to being ready to be issued. So we will be getting that out, as well as the wetlands questions, which I mentioned during our team introductions. We can definitely field some questions today, but we'll make sure to have Christopher Burke, engineering, here at our next meeting for any more detailed questions. So with that, we wanted to keep it brief, but we have our entire contingent here. I'm happy to take questions or hear your feedback tonight. And with that, I think we'll turn it back over for questions.
All right.
Thank
do we
you.
have any questions from the commission? Questions? Go ahead. Do you want to go ahead, Commissioner
Yeah,
Fenner?
I have some questions. So first of all, the aesthetic, right? And the two renderings that you provided. This is a very important development if approved, right? It's probably one of the biggest we've approved in a while. And I think I would like to see at least some different options. I mean, some of it seems that they're very nice. I'm not knocking the aesthetic of it, but some of the end units, it just seems like it was very plain, a lot of white. I would like to see maybe an exercise in a little bit of variety with the aesthetic there. Not to go away with right now what the scheme is, but again, I've lived here in the area minus maybe 8 or 9 years since like the late 80s, right? So I know the area very well. I have concerns about some of the traffic, obviously, and I've reviewed the traffic study. But again, this is a very important development. I'd like to see maybe some more renderings. Obviously, I know you're coming in with some more building materials, but I think even before then, I would like to see some options, different options.
Understood. We'll make a note of that. And I'm really sorry, and I think that's why Director Fontaine was looking at me. We did have one indulgence, if we could ask it. Our environmental engineer does have, or consultant does have a family matter to attend to, so he needs to leave. So we were wondering if at all possible, if any environmental questions from the commission we could get right off the bat. And then again, anything we can't answer will come back, or from the public we can answer next time. But I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier.
Okay, Commissioner Henry, I think has a question in that.
Yeah, you mentioned seeking no further remediation letter from the Illinois EPA. Have you done a phase 1 study on the property? And if you have, could you share it with us?
No.
So if your environmental engineer wants to answer that question, he needs to come up to the podium and we need to swear him in and get his name.
All right, I'll address that. So we have not done, the applicant has not done a phase 1. Previous potential developers or the owner may have, but we would want to do our own, and we haven't done that yet.
Sure. And I noticed on those other projects that you referenced that you worked on, they both showed phase 1s and phase 2. And generally phase 2 is only done if phase 1 comes up with something that requires a phase 2 study. But that hasn't been done yet, correct?
Correct.
Well, we would like to see it when it is. You have a question, Commissioner Mantis.
Couple questions.
Okay, wait, excuse me. All the questions need to be directed through the chair, and then public will have a chance to comment shortly, but you can't just speak directly to us while we're in the middle of taking testimony, okay? Commissioner Mantis had a question.
Yes, 2 quick questions. First thing was, so in talking about the height of the structures, do you have any measurements for the height of the existing trees in the wetlands that would be facing the single-family zoning district. I think it'd be interesting to see kind of how those heights compare, and if you don't have it now, maybe for the next meeting, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't believe we have an exhibit tonight, but we'll make sure to bring one at the next meeting.
And then the second one is, so talking kind of about public benefit and the widening of the road and retention of the green space as preserved space. Was there any consideration to activating that space in any way, whether it be a trail for walking for the community or anything like that?
I don't believe that's something that we've considered. There was at one point a comment about providing a pass through, and we declined to do that just for security purposes. But it's something we could look into.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Imchuk.
During the staff report, I think, Carl, you mentioned that the single-family district that's just to the west, I think you had a slide that showed the typical elevation, or maybe that was in the packet, compared to the elevation of the proposed townhomes. Do you happen to know offhand what that difference would be?
Well, may I respond, Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, please.
So yeah, the applicant had an exhibit, and I can pull it up. There was an exhibit, it was not in my presentation, but it's the applicant's exhibit, and it was in the packet, and I can try to pull it up. It was an exhibit that attempted to show the elevations related to the abutting neighborhoods. I can try to, I believe that's what you're referring to?
Yep, that's the one. Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions here from the commission? I'm going to go back to Commissioner Fetner.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just, I want to go back to the height question, and what is the reasoning or the purpose for requiring or requesting the 41 foot as opposed to 35 foot?
I'm going to ask our architectural or our architect Natalie to come up and answer that, and she'll get sworn in.
Good evening, Natalie Viscuso, spelled Viscuso with
Do you
BSB
swear to
Design.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So with regards to the height question, and Carl, maybe you could go to the exhibit that talks about the average existing grade as well. I'll get closer to the mic.
Yes.
Thank you. Carl, could you go to there we go.
Would you like the elevations, or would you like the grade exhibit?
The elevation exhibit with the height markers. So there's a couple reasons that we're looking for a variance on the building height. If we were to take a look at the elevation and just look at local grade at each building, we'd be at just below 38 feet for the overall building height. And what that would allow us would be higher ceilings on each level. What we're seeing in the industry is no longer 8-foot ceilings, but more 9-foot, 10-foot. And so this allows us to get 3 additional feet and increase the ceiling heights at each level. In addition, we also have to factor in average existing grade for the site, which Carl explained. And so with that said, we have to factor in an additional grade change on the site and ask for additional relief because of that.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I understand that this is focused on this particular question, but once the board is satisfied with this question, can we focus on the environmental aspects? Because there was that request, and that gentleman does need to leave. And it might make sense to hear from the public that only has questions about the environmental at this point.
Okay.
Just a suggestion, I defer to you, Chair.
Okay. Do we have our height questions answered yet?
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And again, I think like we said before, when this comes back, we'd like to see which buildings on the plan will be exceeding the height limit. and need the variance. Addition, it would be nice to call out the buildings that are going to have the encroachment issues and the ones that need the 4-foot landscaping buffer instead of the 5-foot.
We can prepare that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now, all right, so can you bring your,
Are we only talking environmental, or can I ask other questions?
I think we're going to go to environmental first, and then we'll come back to more questions. So do you want to have your environmental person come up?
Sure. Jason, do you want to? Your name, spell, and then.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, name please, and spell your last name.
Jason Warren, Warren.
Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll have the commission ask you any questions, and then if we need to have public questions on environmental only, we will do that. Okay, so do we have any commission questions for the environment? No? All right, do we have any public questions on the environment? Okay, please come up. Can I ask you to step aside from the podium since we only have the one microphone right now?
Hello,
Okay.
Lori. Yes, I swear to,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, name please. Please speak into the microphone.
Lori Broutman, Broutman.
Okay, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I wanted to ask, what are the environmentally sensitive areas?
Okay, so Mr. Warren, you can come up and answer that question for us.
Chair, if I may, what I would suggest so that there's not a lot of back and forth, confirm that that's all of the environmental questions and then.
Okay, we'll ask them all first and then.
I want to also ask about flooding for the, what's the possibility of flooding for the areas like the properties around there? What's the impact of the wetland conservation easement? What was the remediation that you did previously on the property?
Okay, real quick, sir, you had some environmental questions as well. Did you want to go up and ask them real quick, and then he can answer them all at once?
Sure. My name is Eugene Goldfarb. I believe you had my letter that went with the package. It depends how you
Do you
divide
swear
it.
to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Excuse me?
I have to swear you in. Will you?
Sure.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, you've given us a letter, you say.
Yeah, it was in the package.
Okay, we saw it.
And the environment can be defined very broadly. I'm assuming you're talking just about like a phase 1 site environmental assessment, which is site contamination at this time. All I'm saying is that this is a brownfield property. It's generally recognized that brownfields have to be developed with a public-private partnership. There has to be trust. We'll be marrying this development for the rest of our lives in the community, and we should approach it with trust. It's hard to believe that a developer decided to redevelop a plastic plant and didn't look into what it would cost them, let alone the person who bought it originally, who was here 2 years ago and told us, oh, I did an extensive cleanup, I got a letter from the Illinois EPA, and we never saw it. All I'm saying is trust us, trust the community, let's work together. Habitat is one of the premier developers in the Chicago area, and they've gotten that way by taking on challenging projects and succeeding. And, maybe you didn't do the phase 1, but maybe you saw a phase 1 that the owner did, and you could share it with us, and we could talk. This is a very strategic property. We look at the city of Highland Park was developed because it was near the railroad. That was 100 years ago. Today, we're by the expressway. That's where this project is. I don't think we need our own independent traffic consultant to look at the traffic study. I don't think it realizes what a problem this was. Their study was done October 29th, 2024. It said, oh, there's no bicycle traffic. That could be a solution to the problem, or it could exacerbate the problem. And it could be danger. It could be, what are the benefits to the community from this development? There's so much potential to make this a jewel in Highland Park. Instead, we're getting something that's separated from the community and doesn't solve our problems. So please share the phase 1 or phase 2, whoever did it. Please let's work on this together. We're fortunate we have a well-respected developer. Let's give Highland Park something that we could all be proud of.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Warren, do you have any comments on on any of that, on the environmental impact, that the report that we're waiting on?
No comment from me.
Okay. Any of the questions that Ms. Bruckner had? The environmentally sensitive areas, the flooding potential for the area?
I can't speak to the flooding. Environmentally sensitive, the entire property is going to be enrolled in the SRP program. So you can consider the entire property environmentally sensitive because ultimately it will receive no further remediation determination from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. It's a voluntary program. The question was, what is the SRP program? It's a voluntary program that allows remedial applicants or property owners to enroll their property into basically their supervision with the guidance and support of a consultant. We thoroughly characterize the property per Illinois regulations, collect soil and groundwater samples, and basically show the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency that if there are impacts on site, they can be addressed through engineering or institutional controls, be that asphalt parking lots, concrete building pads to basically encapsulate the contaminants in the soil or groundwater. And if there are impacts in the groundwater, we basically do calculations which show how long it takes them to attenuate or break down if they migrate off-site. And the Illinois EPA has, certain rules and regulations and basically procedures to follow that help you get that no further remediation determination. So it's pretty straightforward process, and I'm not anticipating seeing anything, earth-shattering here. It wasn't a gas station or a nuclear power plant or anything like that. So should be pretty straightforward and easy to obtain closure from this site, in my opinion.
Okay. Does the public have any more questions for Mr. Warren? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But just to confirm, you haven't seen any prior reports or any testing?
I have not, no.
Okay.
That doesn't mean there's none out there, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions from the public for Mr. Warren?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think you're dismissed. Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right. Does the commission have any more questions for the applicant? Commissioner Kirch, Vice Chair Kirch had a question for the applicant.
I'm just curious, what drew you to this site with this particular proposal, given that it wasn't zoned for this type of development?
Sure. I'm happy to reply, and then if someone from Habitat wanted to come up. Like I said, Habitat is a residential developer, but had been watching this site, and quite frankly, after watching the previous iteration of an industrial use and the feedback that received from the community as well as this commission, I think it became clear that plan, had some challenges. And so we started looking, the current owner started looking at potential other uses that would receive a warmer reception from the community and from the commission, and as well as ultimately from the city council. I can say because I attended the community meeting that we held a few months back that it did seem markedly different reception. We had a very positive, productive meeting with the community. So I think based on that, and just kind of, requesting a change in zoning when there's been a change in circumstances here, it would be Solo Cup moving its facilities out of the area, as well as the pattern of uses and development in the surrounding vicinity. We think this was an appropriate zoning change request to make, both from kind of those the historic perspective, as well as what we've seen most recently from the community of what they want to see for this site.
Did you consider any kind of mixed use, something a little more imaginative than
No.
same after same townhouse?
No, I think just based on their experience as well as what they see in the marketplace, that this is what we see as the
So you think
appropriate
there's no,
plan.
you think there's no hope for this site to be anything other than residential, given,
That's what we're proposing is residential.
okay, is it going to be condominiums or rental?
We're not sure. It may be, that will be dictated by the market, whether it's for sale or
If the market
apartments.
were today, what would you build?
I don't know if we're willing to commit to that today.
There are several of the variations requested, like the 12 feet instead of 15 between buildings and some of the side yards and the yard encroachment. I believe there's lots of land there. Could you put fewer units on the site and make the project compliant with those variations?
I mean, I will come back with the exhibit that was just requested around more specificity about the exact locations and why they're required. But the density is what's needed in order to make the project work. And really, those are driven by primarily, especially when it comes to site planning, wanting to maximize that buffer space with really minimal to no impact to the surrounding community, given, they won't be, that the setback requests, for example, are not adjacent to any residential. Most of them are interior to the site.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
may, just to
Dr.
make
Fontaine.
mention of something that Commissioner Kirsch just spoke about. So I will say from a staff perspective, we did emphasize to the developer how important the buffers were to the neighborhood. And so that was something that, from a staff perspective, can you hear me now? Just a little better? Okay. How about now? Better? Okay. From a staff perspective, we did emphasize to the developer how important the buffers to the existing neighborhood was, both sides, the southern portion and then along Ridge Road, and when they were thinking about their design. So I just wanted to make that clear. That was an overriding consideration. There is also a number of important trees located in some of these buffers that would be heritage trees, and we did not want to see the loss of heritage trees as well. And so it's a combination of things, and tree inventory and other things can get into the health of those trees, and we can talk about where those are exactly. But those were the types of things talked about with regard to those buffers and their delineation. Thank you.
So I have a question. So since this is a property that's bounded the way it is, it does seem to be a bit of an enclave. And I don't know how much of a concern that, but reading through some of the comments that people emailed to the commission, it seems that anything you could do to try to integrate it better with the neighborhoods would be applauded, such as making sure there was the walkable outlet at the southwest corner of the property. I think that was talked about walking over to Devonshire Park. There was a lot of comments about the bike community being impacted. And is there a way to help out the bikers the bikers and the walkers who need to use the overpass at Old Deerfield Road and Deerfield Road to get over Highway 41 in order to get into town? That has come up in the past, and I think if something could be done to improve that aspect for the pedestrians and the bikers, because I do think you've got that on your easement, would be helpful and appreciated in terms of in terms of a public benefit for the project. Another thing, and we've not discussed it with the commission, but it is possible, what if the commission were to put what's the word I'm looking for? Consideration that the R7, if this is rezoned, that the R7 cannot be built on. I know you don't intend to build on it, but things happen 20 years from now, something comes up and now someone wants to build single-family homes there. Perhaps a condition is placed on that. I think those are my comments. Are there any more comments? Commissioner Fetner.
Thank you. Right, you mentioned that the existing, the current tax revenue is pretty much nothing there right now. Have you done any preliminary calculations to what the actual tax revenue would be for the city once this development would be completed?
So we've hired a consultant to do a very detailed study into that, both the enhanced revenue impact fees that would be paid, as well as costs. That's not ready yet, but we expect to have that ready at the next meeting.
I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, Commissioner Nanis has a question.
Yeah, I have two questions. One, in Carl, can you scroll up a little bit? The public access road, or whatever, the road there to the right, can you guys confirm that that would never be turned over to the city, so we wouldn't be responsible for any long-term upkeep, maintenance, plowing, any infrastructure underneath it? That would all be privately held, and you guys would be fully responsible for it, and it wouldn't impact the taxpayers?
Yep, correct. It's privately owned currently. We anticipate, unless the city asked for it, which they haven't, that would continue to be privately owned and maintained.
Great. And
So
then,
from Ridgefield South?
yeah, that little
the
sliver,
whole
the
sliver.
far
Okay.
sliver, that whole sliver.
The whole thing, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Madam Chair, that's what we were referring to at the outset of the meeting with regard to allowing pass and repass from Richfield Avenue along that access road to the north, basically allowing traffic to flow through to the north.
Okay.
Okay? An important connection so that Richfield Avenue is not a dead end.
Right.
And my second question, and I apologize, I couldn't find the slide, but in one of the slides, Carl, it talked about the minimum parking requirements for development of the size, and this one far exceeded it by about 100 spots or some number of that case. One, can you guys just share your math behind the requirement to turn this into a parking lot surrounded by trees, and the need for this many parking spots, like it was 6 or something per unit or something very high?
So the parking we're just shy of 3-to-1, 3 parking spaces per unit. 2 of those parking spaces would be located in a garage, so just a 2-car garage that we would expect would be used by the occupiers of the unit typically. And then the additional, just shy of 240 units are scattered throughout the site with the expectation that those could be used by visitors. We heard very loud and clear that the police parking across the street, even though it's on a public right-of-way, is heavily utilized by people going to the police station. So we wanted to make sure to accommodate any additional parking need on the site so that we don't have, visitors parking across the street and utilizing those spaces that we heard are heavily used by the police.
Got it. I mean, it just seems to me that this seems to be a giant car storage with some houses on it. But that's just my opinion. And additionally, is the 36 spots in the upper left corner, is that restricted to tenants and their guests, or is that also available for public? Just knowing there's a restaurant adjacent to it, just curious there.
Yeah, so that that kind of area of the site is currently a parking lot that's utilized by some of the businesses in the area and subject to an easement. So we have to respect that easement right and continue to use that specific location on the site for parking that's benefited by those easement holders. What we're proposing to do, and it would probably be the majority of any of the parking on the site that would be used by anyone off-site, but would be to reconfigure that to be more efficient and also enlarge it in order to provide additional parking that the visitors to the police station across the street could utilize. So that's not, primarily that's not being, or I would say that lot is not something that we're building with a mind to our residents using it. It's more a proposed public benefit responding to what we had heard while respecting the easement rights of the entity that benefits from that easement currently.
Thank you.
Yes,
Follow
please.
up on that. I totally agree with Commissioner Nanis, and I think one thing that strikes me looking at the site plan is that it really does seem designed for cars, not for people or cyclists. And I would love to see a little bit more of a grid street system, if possible, in this, just to make it easier for people to walk around or bike around, and to the enclave comment, maybe make it a little bit more accessible to folks who are traveling in this area. And then I believe a couple other folks mentioned, but I would just want to echo that if there is an opportunity to integrate a trail or some other type of public access in the preserve part of the property, that would be a really nice amenity to be able to bring to this neighborhood.
Okay, any more questions, Commission? Oh, Commissioner Henry.
We're really pleased that you're here before the Plan and Design Commission, but there are other governmental entities that are going to be impacted by a development the size of this. So I'm wondering, have you approached the school districts who would be very seriously impacted by this and had discussions with them?
Yes, actually, both school, I think it's 2 school districts are impacted here. They both were at the community meeting. We started the discussions that evening and have exchanged contact information with them and continued those conversations since.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, and I can attest that, yeah, city officials have been at those meetings as well. As city manager coordinated with the superintendents, and we had a meeting recently with the applicant about various items with regard to the project. One of the items that was requested by the school districts was an estimation on the number of school-age children, and the applicant indicated that they would provide that.
Okay, thank you, Director Fontaine. All right, Commission, any more? All right, so if the public has any questions, can I get a show of hands for who might have a question from the public? Okay. Why don't you come up at like 3 at a time to come stand at the podium, so you don't have to spend a half an hour standing there, but come up 3 at a time.
Madam Chair, just if I may, just it's questions and any other comments. Is that correct, or just questions are you asking for?
Questions or comments about this project?
Okay, thank you. I just want to make that clear.
And Chair, before we begin the public comment, do you want to swear everyone in right now, or just do it one by one?
You know, if you've got your hand up, who wanted to have a comment? Okay, you've got your hand up. Please swear you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. So when you come up, you're going to give your name, spell your last name, give your name, spell your last name, and then you have 3 minutes.
Madam Chair, just one other
Sure.
point. Is there anyone who would like to speak that needs a mobile mic? Because we can bring that to you. Okay, Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Helen Singer. I'm a pretty proximate neighbor on Edgewood Road. I apologize if I missed some of the comments about the schools. I mean, there's a lot of things I'd love to, and I'm sure we will all learn more about. But, townhomes with 2 stories, 3 in some way, typically do have families. And very often they're there for the school district. But this is an unknown elementary school district. Do I understand that? It could be 109 or it could be 112, or did I mishear? I don't know.
Director Fontaine will answer that question while we pause your timer.
Madam Chair, just for the record, that's not a zoning related question, but it's certainly understandable that people may have this question. So there is a school district line that bisects the land here. It's not evenly divided. We have, with the applicant, spoken with the school district about that, and they have a method for determining which school district a particular unit is in if it's bisected by a school district line. So this is going to be between 109 and 112 school districts. So some parts of the development will go to one, other parts will go to another. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So with that explanation is basically this commission has no say in that matter.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, any more questions about that? No, all right, next.
I am Larry Metnick, METNICK. I was curious as to what the price range would be of the units. To me, if we know the price range, we get a general idea of what the quality of the overall development would be. Thank you.
Okay, if you wanted, I don't know if you wanted an answer from the applicant, but
The applicant, if possible.
yeah, my understanding from earlier comment is that they were not ready to decide how many units would be for sale and how many would be for rent.
Yeah, but if they're putting all this money into it, they must have some idea of what they would charge for the houses. How can you spend millions of dollars and not know what you're going to get back?
Would the applicant like to answer that?
Chair, what I would suggest is that the public commenter complete his questions and
Okay,
and in fact, the applicant afterwards have a chance for rebutting or answering all of the questions once public comment is completed.
okay. Write that down. Okay. Any more questions from Mr. Metnick? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Kirch, Kerch.
Okay.
I do have a number of questions. I'm also really questioning the look and the lack of imagination, and it is a very important thing. If this were to get zoned this way and this many homes would come, first of all, you're talking about a potential of 700 to 1,000 people plopping down and being part of the community, which is great. We'd like more people. But, the density there, to be 12 feet apart. I mean, I lived in the city for a long time, and your homes are pretty close together in the bungalows or in the townhomes, and you don't want to be able to reach and touch some, pass something over between windows. That close and that dense, it's not elegant, and it seems unnecessary. And also, if there's a very big difference between renting and owning. If it's renting, then it's Habitat's the landlord of all these things, and are they going to be keeping them up, and are they going to be being the maintenance guy that you call? And I mean, that's a whole different formula for who's going to live there, how long, and if it's a transient thing or if it's a community that you're building in for like a long period. And I also have the question, so if people are going to get to buy these things or not, and who's going to, is Habitat just going to be the landlord of half of it? And then there's an HOA situation question, if it's going to be condos and townhomes and things like that. And the amount that you're going to expect people to be able to spend is going to make a big difference on both who it attracts and the school district thing. Someone was saying that maybe if that's bifurcated, that might be 2 different tax situations. So that will be a fun game to play. And so I just think that you guys are kind of just going, well, we need housing. Isn't that great? And it's a big space and this is be swell. And I just think I'm just going to say it. I think they're really ugly and they're really unimaginative and repetitive. And that just comes up with a very fake feel, a very tinderbox, kind of just like little boxes made of ticky-tacky kind of feeling. And it's not, you go down to town home, like a row of townhomes in the city, and there's brick and there's stone, and it's interesting, at least. A little interesting would be nice. Otherwise, you best not be asking for a ton of money from these people, and then how are you going to make it up? Also, I had a question about the picture. There's a bunch with white, and then there's some with really long ones with darker. What's the difference between those two? Is it just that there's more attached in the longer ones, and that's why they're dark brown on the picture? And also, there's very little green, like on the street. I think if you close up, maybe there was trees, and I don't know if those are little sidewalks, because you guys are so zoomed out, we can't see. So if there's sidewalks or greenery or whatever. And those bare wood posts are giving the Waltons to me. So, I mean, the design is to me objectionable. Having no basements and slabs and things like that, again, kind of, it's like a downgrade. So if you could answer questions about how elegant and nice you can make this as part of the community, it'd be great.
All right, thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Carl Schwarz. I own 1628 Old Deerfield Road, or as you call it, the Ridgefield South Extension. So I own the commercial building right there. I'm curious if you're going to open up that street as proposed, which I have no objection to. What about that road condition, which is horrible, as Joel knows and Gita knows. We need all new infrastructure there. We need new sewer, new water, new storm sewer. Storm sewer is a whole nother issue. Where's all this water going to go? Currently, the property just drains into the railroad tracks. All of our properties drain towards the railroad tracks. There is no storm sewer system, truly. It's like an 8-inch pipe that's all collapsed. We've been asking for years to get it fixed. It never gets fixed. So as part of this project, if you want to open up that road and do it, and you're going to increase my traffic significantly in front of my building, I just want to know, is that going to get fixed?
All right, thank you. Next.
Hi, Sandra Lurie. I live on Devonshire, just off Ridge. So this is a big deal to me. But I have a question that I noticed when I was looking at the paperwork. On page 1 of where it says project narrative, it says that this project may be built in phases, depending on market conditions. So the question is, theoretically, that could mean that half or less of the development is done and the rest lays until when? It happened in Northbrook. There was a Jacobs development off of Shermer. They built a bunch of townhomes. They never got the development never completed. So I'm wondering if that is something that is a possibility. And when would it be completed and all that? Then I have one other question. I just noticed the attorney, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, from Piper. She made a comment, she said, Habitat is contracting, they're not purchasing the property. Is that accurate? The property still stays with Mr. Eichner? No? I heard that wrong? Okay. And just selfishly, the screening on Ridge, the amount of vegetation that screens out the development is very important to people who live on Ridge and close to the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Rick Balnick. I also live on Devonshire. I bike frequently down Old Deerfield Road to the bike path, so I'm concerned about the traffic. But my question is maybe it's more of a comment. I don't know if this is true, but I've been told that the Auberge facility, that was an intermediate care facility, is going to be purchased for a facility for mentally ill, developmentally disabled, or autistic adults, which I support. But I'm wondering if if that's true, has there been consideration for what the impact of this project will be to have that facility so close by? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm William Dixon. I live on Grove, so this is basically my backyard. And I thought Solo Cup was a nice neighbor. They never bothered me. I didn't really hear much noise from them. And I never noticed any, call it noise pollution. You asked before about the environment, and does anyone have any environmental concerns? That's pretty broad. You know, could cover the flooding, congestion, which are pretty big. The congestion, I think, is pretty large, and the lighting. So it's a big impact to the area. And the Solo Cup property, I think, should be developed and will be developed. And I think I'm a reasonable person, and I think most people here are very reasonable. And as a reasonable man, I think that what they're proposing here is very dense. I think a reasonable man would think that that is a little bit too much. It seems to me like they've got this big piece of property and you decided to have some areas where the spaces where they could build places, they decided to block those off and push all those developments together. I think I saw there was like 50 blocks. I don't know how many are in each block, but that would be pretty interesting. And I just think they've asked for a lot. They've asked for height adjustments. They've asked for the whole property to be rezoned, which is a big ask right there. And I've lived in this area for a really long time. My neighbor actually lived there before it was Solo Cup, when it was a farm. And she told me there was a covenant about building on that property to allow Solo Cup to build on that property. It goes back to the past. I'd like to know where that covenant is, because I assume that it would pertain to the present. So I'd like somebody to answer that. I think that reasonable people will compromise and there'll be some give and some take. I don't think that I think that they're asking for the sun here. I think there's some things that should be granted or allowed or just in cooperation. But there's some other things that I think that should be said no to, like density, like compactness. We all have to live here. And I also would like to say that it seems kind of unusual that they don't have an idea on how much that they're going to charge for these facilities. There must be some sort of a financial plan somewhere to come up with the cost per basis for each unit.
Okay,
Where's
so
that info?
As soon as everybody finishes, we will direct these questions back to the applicant. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ed Brill, B-R-I-L-L. I live at 669 Ridge Road. I've been to every community meeting there's been on this project, and every time I raise the issue that the traffic information shared has not had any consideration of cycling or walking. And the packet for this meeting had 41 pages of inventory on trees and 0 mentions of cycling whatsoever. The traffic study was conducted on October 29th at the end of the cycling season. So there's 6 months of the year where Ridgefield, Old Deerfield Road, the overpass at 41, and the Skokie Valley Trail are critical components of biking and walking in Highland Park and in the entire northern suburbs. But KLOA has a complete blind spot and never talks to us about the impact that this project absolutely will have on those, because the Skokie Valley Trail is essentially adjacent to one of the 2 primary proposed ingress and egress positions for this project. The City of Highland Park has a complete streets policy that was passed over a year ago, and it's never mentioned whatsoever in this project. So, we need to have traffic not just be hundreds of pages of thinking about parking, car volume. Those are all relevant, of course, but there are more modes of transportation. There are people on the west side of Highland Park that are 100% reliant on being able to walk through this property in this area every Saturday to get to a house of worship. And it's not considered in this whatsoever, but it will absolutely be impacted by this plan whatsoever. So this needs a complete rethink, not just about cars.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, Danny Spanger, Spanger. I'm on the corner of Ridge and Grove. I just have a couple comments, and some of them have been brought up, but I'm going to reiterate. Grove Avenue, the east side near the railroad tracks, already floods badly for the residents that live there. So what is this going to do to that? You were talking about the improvements, putting in a turn lane for Old Deerfield Road. Who's paying for that? Is it the taxpayers or is it the development? I did have one other thing to say and now I can't remember what it was. So I'll just stop at those two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Walter Hainsfurther, Hainsfurther. I am an architect. I'm a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. And oh yeah, I used to be the chairman, immediate past chairman of this commission. So I'm familiar with the previous proposal pretty intimately, and I'm familiar with this property. First of all, I want to thank Habitat. I think this is a much better proposal than we saw 2 years ago, and they should be congratulated. But as I've heard the Plan Commission say, they seem to remember a few things I said in the past, that your job is
Can you hang on a second? Carl, I don't think his microphone's working properly.
time nobody's been able to hear me. This is pretty good. Usually I can be heard blocks away. Sorry. You want me to start over? No.
No, just the last bit.
So how do we make this project better, right? That's what we really look at. Number one is, it is too dense. There is no question. What's the right density amount? I couldn't tell you. Is it 225 units? Is it 200 units? I don't know, but this is way too dense. And that impacts the next thing. There is very little green space in the middle of this development. I appreciate that that they're screening the neighbors, but I think they can do better inside that development. I'm curious about the guest parking. As you might remember, that's something I'm very particular about. I get the sense that the majority of those 240 spaces, I think they mentioned, are driveway spaces in front of the units. So I'd like to see where the guest parking is. In fact, I'd like to see these slides broken up into smaller pieces because it's really hard to tell what's going on from an overall view of this site. So green space, density, the traffic study, I think has been mentioned. I want to just kind of focus on a couple of things regarding public benefit. Increased tax revenue is not a public benefit as defined by our code. If I could press the button. Maybe it's because I'm standing on the cord. Okay, let's try it again. Taxes, increased taxes are not a public benefit, as you know, by the code. I question whether the widening of the road is a public benefit because that's necessary. Yes, use this. That's required. It's on. It's on. because that's required for them to really be able to serve their development. It does not benefit the taxpayers of the city of Highland Park. Things like bike trails or other common, other amenities, pocket parks, those sorts of things, those things are fair game, but not increased tax revenue and not maintaining those buffers, because that could be a condition. And as somebody pointed out, I think you should have a condition that says a conservation easement in perpetuity for the surrounding area. I think that the other thing I just want to close with, I know Stephanie mentioned monotony of design. I'm not somebody who likes design review. I've said it many times, but there are standards that they have to meet in terms of easily maintainable materials and quality of construction. I don't know that this does this, and I think you ought to take a look at what we did at Bloom and Waukegan, which is a much better answer. It's a very similar look to this development, and I think if you looked at that, you would solve some of the height issues. You would solve some of the other issues, because those townhouses, as far as I can remember, did not get those kind of variances. And they're asking for a lot of variances, so you should be asking for quite a bit of public benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a better one. I'm done talking to them.
We're on the microphone.
Hi, Jason Bober. My wife and I live on Grove Avenue. Our backyard is a solo cup. So the one question we have is there any kind of a fence that's going to be built for the residents along Grove, or is it just going to be tree line? My comment is, as far as the density goes, there's two ways in and out of this neighborhood. You either go left or right down Ridge Road. I leave early in the morning, so I don't have to deal with the traffic. My wife, she leaves. There are days during the school year that it can get a little congested. So I strongly suggest you take a look at what happens when the school lets out and the buses are going down the road, et cetera. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Broutman, Broutman. Wanted to ask why there weren't no basements being planned. And many of them, they asked the environment person, so I'm going to email Carl then, and if you could get answers to those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brunges, B-R-U-N-J, Lumber and Hardware. I have 4 comments. First one being, I think this is the best proposal for this property that we've seen so far. I understand the density issue, but density is also a question of what the developer can afford to do. They've got to get their money out of it. Otherwise, the whole proposal doesn't go forward. I did notice on one of the presentations here that there are telephone poles, utility poles, and utilities on the west side of the property. And I'm wondering if those couldn't be put underground or put along the railroad tracks rather than having the public look at them all day long. In other places, I've seen and experienced left turn on flashing yellow. And I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but it works. And that might help alleviate the congestion in front of the police department. I would not suggest it for Deerfield Road, but in front of the police department, it'd probably work. The other congestion spot that has not been addressed yet, at least in terms of what I've seen, is a right turn on red, eastbound and westbound Richfield Road. Something needs to be done there because Richfield Road can get backed up between Deerfield and Old Deerfield Road. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any more questions from the public? All right, would the applicant like to come up and we'll try to make sense of all these questions and try to answer some of them.
Again, for the record, Katie Jenkydale. We took close notes. I think some of them will be addressed in some of those additional materials that we spoke about earlier with respect to looking at the architecture, providing some additional information, as well as the building material samples that I think that were covered in the staff presentation as coming at a later date. Trying to kind of work my way through if there are specific ones that commission members wanted us to focus in on. Like I think the chair recognized, it's going to be a minimum of 18, if not 24 months before this first unit comes online, given just the complexity of this project and what all goes into a project of this scale. So it really will be subject to the market as far as the product type between renter, owner, or condo, owner occupied, I should say. But rest assured, there is a standard in your code that we will be meeting in either respect, either by maintaining common ownership in the rental scenario or putting in place a covenant if it were to go for sale because the market dictated that. That's a code requirement that I'm sure the city attorney will require. It goes into the approvals given it's a standard. And hopefully by what we've shared with you and has been acknowledged during the public comment even, you have confidence that Habitat does have experience with both product types and historic success going back many decades. Are there any specific questions that jumped out to the commissioners that you would like for us to address?
So
or themes?
I think the question about who is the landlord eventually was a concern. And while you may not be able to answer that this time, perhaps next time you can help elucidate like what you see going forward for the ownership. And a number of people asked about price points. So if there's information you can give to us either now or the next time you're here, that would be wonderful.
Just to clarify, so price points again will be very much dictated by market construction costs. And again, whether it's rental or for sale, and we're not sure as we sit here, potentially 2 years before we bring the first unit online. As far as who would be the landlord or who would own it, that also is dictated by whether the site is either rental or for sale. But like I mentioned, the code requires that either there be common ownership, which would be one landlord for the entire site if it were all rental that owned and managed and rented all the units, or if it went for sale, there would be again, per code, a covenant or kind of a regime that would be put into place to require for maintenance of common open spaces and those types of things that in a for sale scenario would have to be managed by an association, most likely, which otherwise in the rental scenario would be covered by the landlord.
Okay. It sounds like people would also like to hear a little bit more about, and I know it has to be analyzed by the city engineers, but I think making sure that you have a good idea of where the water is going to go from all the stormwater would be helpful to all of us.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Space Co or Brett from Space Co to respond to that.
Okay, can I get your name, please?
Brett Duffy with Space Co.
Okay, and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, the site it drains from northwesterly to southeasterly towards the railroad tracks. There's some culverts that go under the railroad tracks where the site drains. There's no floodplain mapped on this site. And when we design the project, we'll be designing it to meet the standards of the Lake County Stormwater Management Ordinance, which will be reviewed by staff of the city. So we'll be working on those calculations and providing all the backup to that to meet the county ordinance.
Okay. you have any questions for?
No, I believe there was several questions about bicyclists and safety and pedestrian safety. And there was considerable concern about the lack of a public benefit here. And I think those two things may marry themselves very well to provide a solution, if you guys can come up with it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have Michael Worthman from KLOA, our traffic consultant, talk about how bikes factored into the study. I know we don't have anything tonight without having studied it more around a public benefit on bikes, but we've definitely noted that. But I'll have Michael speak to how their study took that into account.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, wonderful.
My name is Michael Worthman, Werthmann, a principal with KLOA. This area currently has a pretty robust bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Most of the intersections in the area have ladder-style crosswalks wherever there are sidewalks. The signal at Deerfield and Richfield Avenue has countdown pedestrian signals. Most of the intersections along Old Deerfield Road are under always stop sign control, which makes sure the traffic stops so the pedestrians can cross the road or the bicyclists can. In addition, Ridge Road is a bike route within the city. It does have both sharrows on the road as well as bike signs up and down that road. Likewise, Old Deerfield Road has bike signs along that. So there is a lot of bike and pedestrian infrastructure in this area. In addition, we will be providing a sidewalk along our entire frontage to add to the continuity, of the sidewalk system in the area. In addition, while we are generating some traffic, we have multiple access points that helps to distribute that traffic over the roadway system and minimize the traffic on any one road. We did do our counts in October. We can't do the counts in the summer because school is closed and we know how many schools are in the area. So that's why we did the counts in October. But we will look further and work with your staff on this and report back to you at the next meeting. But thank you very much.
Can I comment?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, as far as and I understand, reiterating the infrastructure we have for bicycles, but as someone that lives there, Ridge Road is a major thoroughfare for cyclists in the summer, especially from Clavey, all the way down to the police station there, and then usually they go east. So I would like to see something about what is your traffic impact going to be doing to the cyclists and what type of, and if anything can be taken into account to avoid, God forbid, collisions or increased congestion. I mean, I think that's really the concern of the neighbors and the cyclists in the area, as well as a lot of pedestrian traffic that we have on Friday nights and Saturdays.
We will add a section to address it. I will say the traffic volumes on your roads, Ridge and Old Deerfield, are relatively low compared to some of the other bike routes in the area. For example, right here on Park, that has a higher volume than both those roads and has the same kind of accommodations that you have on Ridge now. Old Deerfield Road carries about 1/2 of the traffic that Park Avenue does. So I'm just providing you a comparison, and we'll address this further, and we're waiting to hear what your staff and your consultant has to say too. But thank you for the comments.
Do we feel that we have, so the only other comments that seemed to come through from several people were that perhaps the developed portion of the property was a bit on the dense side without enough green space. I understand for a lot of these newer plan developments that the idea was we'll crowd all the housing together so that we can maintain green space on the outside that everybody can enjoy and people don't have to manage a yard or whatnot. But I just wanted to make sure you heard that and if there's a way to consolidate some of the parking so that there's a little more green space between the buildings or whatnot.
Or potentially remove. Can I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Henry has a question.
Going to what the chair was saying regarding density, there's generally a connection between density and number of units and the price point that we've been talking about that you may or may not be able to answer, but there's probably some point where if this commission says this is too dense and 240 units are too many, at what point does Habitat say, well, we can't make enough money off of 220 units or something like that? And I have no doubt that Habitat, and I'm not attributing any kind of secretive motive, but there is a point by which they're going to say, we can't get enough money out of this project with, let's say, 200 units. Or it's going to change the price point if we sell them, or the rental point if we rent them. Where does Habitat stand at? Because they've got some ideas on this. I am certain of it, or else they wouldn't be here tonight with this whole project.
You know, it's a great point. And one thing that we failed to mention is we actually already did take a reduction in the what we originally presented. So when we first presented this plan publicly, it was 262 units, and then we made a reduction already. So we're trying to strike a balance, a plan that the community can get behind and support, that we think is appropriate for the site, and we will happily work with staff to try to provide some additional data on, you know, how we compare to other similar developments, but also keeping these units marketable while providing those on-site affordable units as well, which we think is needed in the community. So I couldn't have said it better myself, that there's a lot that goes into this equation, and at some point the equation breaks. And you know, what we're proposing tonight already reflects the reduction that we failed to give ourselves credit for, but we did publicly present the more dense plan. And it's what we think is appropriate, and we're happy to, well, like I said, I know you directed the question at staff, but help pull together some of that data that backs up that what we're proposing is appropriate. I also would appreciate that, you know, looking at a site plan for a 28-acre site all at once is hard to appreciate the scale of some of those green spaces that show up as pretty small on the site. But keeping in mind, we have to, you know, get 240 households to buy into this and appreciate that this is going to be, you know, a beautiful, not, you know, crowded place to live with the appropriate amenity spaces. So we can definitely try to breathe some more life into those, because at this scale, it is hard to appreciate. But thank you for the question. It's definitely top of mind for the development team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any more questions from the commission?
I guess there was one question that got brought up from the public with regard to the spur that goes out to Old Deerfield Road. Is the plan to actually redo that roadway as well?
Yeah, so this privately owned spur, I guess is what we're calling it, we will be upgrading, bringing it up to, you know, the same standard as all the other private roads within the facility.
And that road will be an egress for the site as well, right? So a resident would be able to use that in the same way that they would, we'll call it the main entrance that goes out onto Old Deerfield, correct?
Nomenclature works, yep.
I think they leave from right there.
Go there.
Right. Okay. If the public has any more questions, come on back up and, I'm sorry? Oh.
I know.
Hi again. The question's murmuring over here were, how many square feet is each one of these buildings? On average, are they all the same? Are they unified, like each one, are they all the same on the inside, same square footage, same layouts? How many different layouts, things like that?
Thank you. Yeah, you can come up and answer that question if you can. I assume we're,
I think Natalie can come up and speak to the different unit
okay.
sizes.
Yes, Mr. Burhoff.
Chair, that was also a staff comment in the report that that information would need to be provided as well.
Yes. So again, this is a multi-stage process where the developer comes to us, we talk it over in an effort to make it the best as it can be, and then they'll go back, they'll rehash, they'll add more, and then come back again. So this is a process. Yes. So can you give us some idea on what size each of these units will be?
Absolutely. And again, I'm Natalie Viscusa with BSB Design. We're the architects on the project. And we have, I'll try to go closer to the mic. I apologize. We have 5 unit plans that are proposed for this project, ranging from 1,787 square feet to 2,209 square feet at a range of 2 to 3 bedrooms and then 2.5 bathrooms. And then the building clusters are in 4 unit, 5 unit, or 6 unit building assemblies.
Thank you. Mr. Collier.
Hi, I'm Kevin Collier. I'm a resident of Highland Park. I actually live in Chantilly, which is another townhouse community within Highland Park. With regards to green space, I would suggest y'all may want to come over and drive or walk through Chantilly. We've got great green space with public art that has made it a very lovely community to be in. With regards to the height of the units, I would encourage you to not need 10-foot ceilings. I live in townhouses with an 8-foot ceiling. It's just fine. When you add that additional 2 feet, it contradicts Highland Park's goals with regards to climate and reducing the carbon footprint of the community, because you're heating and cooling 2 feet at the ceiling where Michael Jordan doesn't live. So I would, those would be my 2 comments at this point. And there are studies reports I've given to City Council a couple years ago with regards to other buildings that would confirm the issue with the height and that whether or not foot ceilings are needed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Nanis.
Just one other question. Who is the target demographic you guys are looking at for these this development units?
I wouldn't say that we have like a target demographic. I think it could be a broad range of people. And again, there's a lot, it's whatever we can attract to the site, but including with the affordable units. But there isn't like this isn't like a senior living or anything like that. It's open to anyone.
Thank you.
I will mention, someone over here was asking about the phasing question and how that could play out. Our hope, I think as you can appreciate, is that we would start construction and it would be going very well. We could get the whole thing financed. It's going to depend on what we can get financed, what the market shows that it can absorb. We don't want to build units and have them be empty. So we will try to build this and fill it as quickly as possible. It's in our best interest. And then including if it gets slowed down, making sure that the rest of the site is in, an attractive interim condition. So we'll definitely work through that. But someone over here had mentioned that I didn't address that and wanted to just do so.
Thanks, yeah, because I noted that, and I also failed to ask about it because, we've seen developments have trouble before and then they just get left for decades.
Yeah.
So we don't want that to happen.
Right.
Okay. Any more questions? Any more questions from the public? All right. So Obviously, we're not making any decisions today. So we would be looking for a motion to continue this meeting to, I believe we said May.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if the commission is looking to continue this, staff would recommend that that be Tuesday, May 20th, at this same location and at the same time, 7 PM.
Okay. So Tuesday, May 20th, back here. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
So moved. I have a
Second.
motion. And I got a second down there too. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay.
Please note that this item has been continued to May 20th for this room, this location at 7 PM. Your notice is actual. There'll be no additional notice of this continued public hearing. May 20th, 7 PM in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and bringing your opinions and ideas. We're going to finish up our meeting, so as you leave, try to keep it quiet. Okay. In other business, is there an administrative design review update from our staff?
Administrative design review, no, Madam Chair.
Okay, our next regular meeting is April 15th, 2025. I believe we'll be back at City Hall. Is that correct?
That is correct. That meeting will be back in City Hall.
Anything you need to prep us for yet? Do we know that's on the agenda?
There will be a planned development for a property at Green Bay and Glenview for a townhome or multifamily development. There will be a sign package amendment for the Highland Park Hospital. And there will also be a plat of re-subdivision between two single-family homes on Ridge Road. I don't want to state the addresses wrong. It's on the 100 block.
That's right. That's fine. Okay, case briefing at all? No? Okay. Any business from the public? Any other business from the public? All right, it appears we do not have any more. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, can I get a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Nays? No one wants to stay? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.